My name is Sarah Whitfield, and this is the story of how my ex-husband tried to take my children away from me out of pure spite and ended up losing a fortune because of it. He thought threatening to take my kids would break me. Instead, it cost him 4 times what he thought he was protecting. If you've ever been underestimated by someone who thought they held all the power over you, stick around, because this ending is one of the most satisfying I've ever lived through. I was 24 years old when I held my first baby for the first time, and 24 years old when my husband, Derek, told me I wasn't allowed to go back to work. "It's a waste of money," he said, standing in the doorway of our little rented house outside Columbus, Ohio, arms crossed, his tone final. "Daycare costs more than you'd even bring home. You stay with the baby." I didn't fight it. Not at first. I told myself it was practical. I told myself a lot of things over the next few years, because that's what you do when the walls of a marriage start closing in slowly enough that you can't point to the exact moment they started moving. By the time our second child was 2 years old, I'd stopped believing my own excuses. I found out about the affair almost by accident, a name that kept appearing on Derek's phone at strange hours, a scent that wasn't mine on his jacket. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He didn't even blink. He told me I should be grateful he still came home at all. That was the year our house stopped being a home and started being something I had to survive. The verbal abuse had always been there, disguised as just being honest. But now it sharpened. He'd tell me I was worthless, that no one would ever want a woman with 2 kids and no job history, that I'd starve without him. Sometimes it went past words. I learned to read the air in a room the way sailors read weather. A shift in his jaw, a change in his breathing, and I knew to get the kids upstairs. The night I finally called it was the night I watched him grab our oldest son by the arm hard enough to leave 4 small bruises, shaped like fingers. I didn't scream. I didn't cry, not yet. I just looked at him and said, "Get out. Tonight." He did. He actually left, almost stunned by his own hand being forced. That was 2012. What came next wasn't relief. It was a war I hadn't chosen but had no choice except to fight. I had no income, no family nearby, no daycare I could afford because, of course, Derek had made sure of that years earlier. I filed for child and spousal support, and his response was to dig in. "The courts haven't ordered me to give you a dime," he told me flatly on the phone, and then he hung up. He wasn't wrong, technically not yet, but he made sure the wait was excruciating. He lied to our bank and froze the accounts I still had access to, cutting off the little cushion I had left. When I filed for a default judgment because he wouldn't respond to the divorce paperwork, he showed up at my apartment and put his hands on me. I remember standing in my kitchen afterward, hands shaking so hard I could barely dial 911, thinking, this is the man I built a life with. This is the man who's supposed to help me raise these kids. It took 6 months of hearings, delays, and Derek testing every boundary he could find before a judge finally ordered him to pay $2,562 a month in combined child and spousal support. He didn't pay it. Not until the state garnished his wages directly, by which point he was $6,000 behind. I used that default as leverage to get permission to relocate with the kids, putting real distance between my family and the man who'd spent years making me feel small in my own home. For a moment, just a moment, it felt like I could finally breathe. A year after the divorce finalized, I remarried. Life, for the first time in a long time, started to feel like it belonged to me again. Buried in the court paperwork was a small detail most people would have skimmed past, a checkbox indicating that spousal support would terminate automatically upon remarriage. It wasn't checked. I noticed, but didn't think much of it. I assumed it would resolve itself, and I left that extra year of spousal support, roughly $12,000, exactly where it was. I never touched the far more complicated matter of filing to split Derek's 401k, the retirement account he'd built up over our marriage. I just let it go. I wanted peace more than I wanted a fight over money. For 5 years, that peace held. Then, in 2017, out of absolutely nowhere, Derek filed for sole custody of our kids. There'd been no incident. No change in circumstances. I later pieced together what had actually happened. Derek had found out I'd remarried, and realized that meant he'd been paying spousal support he technically shouldn't have owed during that first year of my new marriage. Instead of simply raising the issue like an adult, he came out swinging for the one thing he knew would hurt me most, my children. I sat across from my attorney, jaw tight, and made a decision that would end up defining everything that came after. Tell him, I said, that if he lets me keep that $12,000, I won't file to split his 401k. It was a fair trade in my mind, more than fair. I had no idea, at the time, just how much money was sitting in that account. I was trying to buy peace, not leverage a windfall. Derek didn't take the deal. Instead, he demanded I repay the spousal support in full. The judge agreed with him. I would repay the $12,000, but soften the blow by increasing Derek's ongoing child support and deducting the repayment from that increase. When the number settled, I ended up $20 a month better off, and Derek had, in effect, repaid himself out of his own future support obligations. In exchange for dropping his custody bid, he walked away with 2 extra weeks with the kids each summer. I told myself it was over. It wasn't. Now that the goodwill trade was off the table, now that Derek had shown in black and white exactly how far he'd go to hurt me over money and control, I stopped trying to be fair. I filed to split his 401k. Derek fought it with everything he had. He refused to cooperate with discovery requests. He missed deadlines. He ignored subpoenas for account statements. What should have taken a few months stretched into 4 years of stonewalling, motions, and continuances. Derek clearly betting I'd eventually get tired and walk away, the way I almost had the first time. I didn't. The court's patience ran out before mine did. Derek was sanctioned. He was ordered to pay me an additional $600 a month for a full year, on top of his existing child support, and was held in contempt of court for his repeated refusal to comply. Still, he dragged it out. In January 2021, Derek proposed to his girlfriend. He was moving on, rebuilding, apparently confident the ugliest chapter of his life was finally behind him. In May of 2021, 4 months later, the disbursement from the retirement order finally came through, and my share of Derek's 401k landed in my account. I won't say the exact number, but it was roughly 4 times the amount of that original $12,000 spousal support overpayment, the same $12,000 Derek had refused to simply let go of, back when a handshake could have made the entire fight disappear. I sat with that number for a long moment and felt something settle in my chest that had been unsettled for almost a decade. Not joy, exactly. Something closer to justice, cold and quiet and completely earned. He had the exit ramp. He chose the collision instead. Derek's reaction, relayed secondhand, was exactly what you'd expect. Fury, disbelief, the sense of a man blindsided by consequences he had personally engineered. But it wasn't Derek who came looking for a fight. It was his fiancée. She emailed me directly, informing me that Derek now refused to go through with the wedding, and that it was, in her words, entirely my fault because I'd cleaned out his retirement account. She called it stolen. She called it robbery. My reply was calm, measured, and absolutely devastating in its simplicity. I gave him a choice, I wrote back. He could let me keep 1 year of spousal support, or I could file for a share of his retirement. He's the one who chose to fight it. If he's serious about marrying you and protecting whatever he has left, get a prenup. She pushed back. She shouldn't have to sign a prenup. She shouldn't be punished for something I robbed him of. I didn't bother responding to that one. There was nothing left to explain to someone determined not to hear it. I never asked to be financially dependent on Derek. I never asked for a war. All I ever wanted was for my children to be safe and for my life to finally be mine. I offered him an off-ramp, twice, in a sense, and both times, he chose the fight instead of the peace. In the end, the money he lost wasn't stolen. It was the direct, foreseeable cost of every choice he made to keep hurting me long after I'd already given him a way out. Play stupid games. Win stupid prizes. If this story hit you right in the chest, smash that like button and let me know in the comments. What's the most satisfying case of karma you've ever witnessed play out in real life? And if you want more stories like this one, hit subscribe, because there are plenty more where that came from.